Scary Stories.
Story 1. The tires crunched over gravel as Ethan Granger's truck coasted to a stop in front of the abandoned hunting cabin. Pines swayed gently under a bruised gray sky. Mist hung between the trees like old cobwebs, dense and still. The air smelled of damp earth and rot, the kind that lingered after weeks of cold rain. He shut off the engine and sat still for a long moment, both hands on the wheel. He could hear the blood in his ears, the hum of memory. He wasn't here to reflect. He was here to end it. Ethan opened the glove box, pulled out the pistol, and placed it on the passenger seat beside a small, battered metal box. Inside it were 4 things: a folded letter addressed to Emily Granger, a photo of his unit in uniform, a black medal, and a bullet. Just one. The cabin had belonged to his uncle, a man who'd vanished into the hills a decade ago and never returned. It had long since gone to dust. No electricity, no running water, just wood, wind, and silence. But that was why Ethan chose it. No distractions, no interruptions, no one to talk him out of it. Inside, the wooden walls wept with condensation. A rusted wood stove stood in the corner. The windows were fogged with mildew. Dust coated the floor like ash. A single cot in the corner. An old rocking chair near the fireplace. And a mirror too tarnished to reflect anything clearly. Ethan dropped his duffel bag and placed the gun on the table. He took a breath and exhaled a decade of war, grief, nightmares, and guilt. He'd carried death with him through Fallujah, Kandahar, and the VA hospitals. But here, finally, it could stop. Tonight, Ethan Granger would die. He poured a glass of bourbon. No ice, no toast. He stared at the tarnished mirror while sipping. Reflection looked like a ghost. Unshaved, sunken eyes, jagged scar beneath his left cheekbone. He'd earned it in the field, but it always looked more like a punishment than a medal. He sat in the chair and pulled the pistol close. Ran a cloth over the barrel. Ejected and checked the chamber. 1 round. The right one. But before he could lift the weapon, he heard something outside. A scream. Muffled. Sharp. Real. Ethan froze. Then footsteps. Running. Desperate. Leaves crunching. Something crashing through the brush. Then, bang, bang, bang. 3 fists on the front door. Rapid. Terrified. Please, please let me in. The voice was a woman's, young, hoarse, and cracking with panic. Ethan stood slowly. His fingers brushed the pistol. Please. Oh God, they're coming. Don't let them find me. Another pound. More desperate. He peeked through the warped peephole. Just a smear of motion and tangled hair. He opened the door an inch, pistol hidden behind the doorframe. A girl, maybe early 20s, stood barefoot and soaked in mud and blood. Her knees nearly buckled when she saw his face. Let me in, she whispered. They killed him. They killed him. They're going to kill me. Against every instinct honed in combat. Ethan opened the door. She stumbled inside and collapsed against the wall. Ethan shut the door and bolted it behind her. Who's coming? He asked coldly, already flipping the safety off his weapon. She was gasping, shivering. They took me. They hurt me. I got away, but they were right behind me. Oh God. She looked up and blinked hard. You're not with them, are you? Ethan raised the gun slightly. You're going to explain. Now. My name's Ivy. Ivy. Monroe. They took me and Sam, my boyfriend, from a rest stop 3 nights ago. Sam's dead. They made me watch. She clutched her side. Her shirt was torn. Dried blood crusted down her arm. Ethan glanced outside through the slit in the curtains. The woods were still, too still. Then headlights, far off, slithering through the trees. Someone was coming. He turned back to her. "Can you walk?" Ivy nodded shakily. "I ran all night. I don't know where we are. I just followed the lights. I thought I saw a house. I didn't think it was real until I got to the porch." Ethan cursed under his breath and grabbed a rifle from under the cot. He checked the chamber. Loaded. "You're going to stay quiet. Stay out of sight. If they knock, don't move. If they come in, hide behind the old fireplace and wait for my word." Ivy stared at him. "Who are you?" "I came here to die," Ethan said plainly. "Looks like I'll have to do that later." 10 minutes passed. A white van pulled up. 3 men stepped out, shadows in the fog. One carried a tire iron, another a machete. The third whistled cheerfully. Behind them came a woman, tall, dark hair, cigarette dangling from her mouth. She was barefoot, calm. Ethan kept the barrel of his rifle pressed between the slats of the curtain. The one with the machete knocked loudly. "Hey there, cabin guy. You seen a girl run by? Little thing, bleeding a lot. We're real worried about her." Silence. "You don't want to help us? That's okay. But we're coming in. Either way." The whistling man stepped up and slammed his boot into the door. It didn't break. Ethan took one slow breath, and then, crack! He fired through the door. The machete man dropped with a cry, screaming. Footsteps scattering. The woman with the cigarette laughed. "Oh, he's got teeth." Inside, Ivy was shaking. Ethan reloaded, keeping low. "They're not leaving. I told you," she whispered. "They don't stop." "Who are they?" She swallowed. "The man in the suit is Logan. The woman is Reese. They run the whole thing like a game. A hunt." Ethan looked at her. "Are there more?" 2 others. One small, quiet. The other's worse than Logan. Outside, the laughter faded. Then a single voice echoed through the trees. "You've made this interesting, stranger. So let's make it fun." Ethan checked the ammo. Ivy looked at him with wide eyes. "What do we do?" Ethan didn't blink. "We survive the night." The forest swallowed sound in a way Ethan Granger had never heard before. Even after a career in combat zones, this silence felt wrong. It wasn't the quiet of waiting. It was the quiet of something. Watching from the other side of the locked door, Logan Cross's voice cut through the dark like a blade. "Stranger, what's your name?" Ethan said nothing. He crouched near the fireplace, motioning Ivy down beside him. His rifle rested across his knees. A second pistol holstered on his thigh. He had maybe a dozen rounds between the two. Outside, Logan chuckled. "That's okay. You don't have to tell me. I'm real good at guessing." Ivy was trembling again. Her knees drawn up, lips tight with pain. A long scratch marked her ribs. Her jeans were torn at the calf, revealing a deep gash caked in dirt. Ethan whispered, "You said there were 5. She nodded. "Logan, Reese, Derek, the loud one, Maya, the quiet girl, and Tommy. He doesn't talk. Just follows." "Do they have guns?" "Yes, and knives, and worse." Outside, Reese called sweetly, "Ivy, you're going to ruin the game. Logan doesn't like when people run. We were almost at the fun part." Ethan clenched his jaw. "They're trying to rattle us." "It works," Ivy whispered. Suddenly, glass shattered. Ethan spun toward the rear window. Maya's pale face vanished into the dark, retreating. He raised the rifle, breath tight. "She's testing gaps," he muttered. "Looking for a crack?" In the shell, he got to his feet, silent. Ivy reached for his arm. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to remind them what a bad idea this is." Outside, Logan paced calmly by the van. Reese leaned against a tree, twirling a knife. Derek held a blood-soaked rag to his arm where Ethan's shot had grazed him. "He's military," Derek spat. "That shot was clean." "I know," Logan said, smiling. "I heard it in the way he moved. Breath. Control. He's the kind of man who thinks the right war makes him a hero. The kind that thinks dying in a cabin is better than living with the weight." "Should we wait for Tommy?" Maya asked, crouching low. "No," Logan said. "Let the dog stay in the dark. He knows when to bite." Inside the cabin, Ethan moved, methodically, hammered nails into boards, pushed furniture against windows, booby-trapped the back door with wire and a hooked machete he found in the shed. The house was becoming a cage, one that Ethan would control. Ivy sat by the fireplace watching him. "You don't even know me. Why are you helping?" He didn't. "Look at her. Because I was ready to die. And now I'm not." She nodded slowly. Then, "Do you believe in evil?" Ethan finally looked at her. "Yes," he said. "And it's standing outside." Midnight. They came again. Reese knocked this time. Soft, playful. "Ethan, we know your name now. Saw it on your dog tags in the glove box." Ethan's heart dropped. The truck. They'd found it. Logan's voice followed. "Ethan Granger, former Army, Afghanistan, twice, general discharge, 1 count of dereliction of duty, PTSD, medically unfit, but still knows how to kill." Ivy stared at him. "Is that true?" He nodded slowly. "I lost my team. I was the only one who walked away." Reese pressed her cheek against the window pane. "That must be so hard. You should come out. Let us make it quick." Ethan raised the rifle and fired through the glass. Her face vanished. Back window. Maya crept through the shed, knife in hand. She slipped past the broken fence line, approached the cabin's rear. The door creaked open just enough. She entered, silent, but the wire Ethan rigged snapped. The hooked machete slashed across her arm. She shrieked and fell, blood spraying across the linoleum. Ethan kicked the door shut and nailed it shut with 2 brutal swings. One down. Fireplace. Ivy wrapped gauze around her thigh wound. Her hands shook. Her skin was pale. Ethan returned with a handful of scavenged bullets. She whispered, "You really think we'll survive this?" "No," he said honestly, "but I think they'll bleed trying." A.M. Derek lit a Molotov cocktail. Logan handed him a lighter. "Start with the woodpile. Smoke them out," Derek laughed. "With pleasure." He approached the far side of the cabin, drenched the stacked logs in gasoline. He lit the flame. But before he could throw, Ethan appeared from the shadows. A tackle. A brutal elbow to the jaw. The 2 men fought in the dirt, brutal and raw. Ethan stabbed Derek in the thigh, shoved his face into the mud and whispered, "Wrong house. 1 shot." Derek didn't get back up. Ethan dragged the body into the brush and vanished again. Cabin interior. Ivy jolted awake to the sound of the front doorknob turning. She grabbed the small pistol Ethan had left her. The knob turned again. Then, it opened. She fired once. Tommy didn't flinch. The bullet missed. But now he was inside, a large, bald man with a stitched mouth and blank eyes. He moved slowly, methodically. Ivy tried to reload, her hands slick with sweat. Tommy lunged. Ethan burst through the rear hallway with a crowbar and cracked Tommy's skull open. The big man groaned, then collapsed. Ethan didn't stop. Not until the body stopped twitching. Reese and Logan stood outside, only two left. Smoke from the failed fire drifted upward, blending with mist. Reese stared into the trees. He's killing them one by one. Logan lit a cigarette. And I'm letting him. She narrowed her eyes. Why? Because he still thinks this is about survival. Inside, Ivy sat on the floor, covered in blood. I don't want to die, she whispered. You're not going to, Ethan said. But they won't stop. I know, he said, loading another round. She looked at him. What are you going to do? He stood. I'm going to end this war the same way I survived the last one. He walked to the front door and looked out into the dark. Then to Ivy. If I don't come back, you run. Ethan Granger stepped out into the moonlit yard, rifle low, breath steaming in the cold. The night was deathly still. The cabin behind him flickered with dim lantern light. The trees stood like shadows with bones. Logan Cross waited in the open, not hiding. He smiled as if greeting an old friend. Now this, Logan said, feels like the right kind of war. Ethan didn't answer. He kept the rifle raised. Logan had no weapon in hand, but his movements were too casual, too confident. Ethan had seen that posture before, in insurgents who planted bombs and waited for someone else to trip them. Call off your psychopaths, Ethan growled. They're all dead, Logan said. Not her. Logan's grin widened. Reese isn't like the others. She doesn't die until she decides it's poetic. Suddenly, movement behind Ethan, a shadow lunging from the brush. He ducked just in time. Reese slashed with a blade, nicking his arm. Ethan swung the rifle around and cracked it against her ribs. She dropped back into the trees with a hiss. Logan didn't move. You can kill me, he said calmly, but Ivy will still bleed. She's soft, hurt, alone. And I know her in ways you never will. Ethan's blood ran cold. What did you say? I said we go way back. You think she ran from strangers? No. We were family. For a while. That hesitation, just a second, was all Logan needed. He rushed Ethan, a brutal fist to the jaw. Ethan stumbled. The rifle fell. They fought in the dirt, grappling, teeth bared. Ethan slammed his knee into Logan's chest and rolled free, grabbing the rifle and backing away. Logan raised his hands. You're not ready yet, he said. Go on. Run home. She'll be gone when you get back. Ethan pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. Logan disappeared into the woods. Inside the cabin, Ivy curled into the corner by the cold fireplace, clutching the pistol Ethan had left her. Her eyes darted to the door every 10 seconds. Her thigh burned from the infected wound. Her mind burned from something worse. Voices whispered in her memory. Logan's laugh, Reese's taunts, the sound of her boyfriend's screams echoing in that basement. She scratched at her arm until it bled. Something inside her whispered, "You should have let them kill you when they had the chance." She wanted to scream. The door creaked. Ethan limped in, arm bleeding, jaw bruised. Ivy nearly shot him by reflex. "It's me," he rasped. "It's just me." She lowered the gun. Her lip trembled. "I thought they got you." They tried. He grabbed the first aid kit and began dressing his arm. "You said you knew Logan?" She swallowed hard. "He wasn't always like this. He was in my life, before everything. We dated for a year when I was 19. Ethan froze. He was charming at first, then possessive, controlling. When I left, he found others. Hurt. Them. I thought I got away." "You didn't," Ethan said quietly. "No, she agreed. I didn't. That night Reese came alone. She circled the cabin, dragging something behind her, a bag full of broken glass and chains. She hummed an old lullaby as she moved. At one window, she leaned close. "Ivy, sweetie," she said gently. "You think this man is going to save you? He's just like the last one, and the one before." She ran her nails along the window. "They all say they'll fight. They all die with your name in their mouth." Inside, Ivy stared at the floor. Her hands covered her ears. "Make it stop," she whispered. "Please, please." Ethan loaded the last of his ammo. 3 shells. 1 clip. 1 knife. Not enough. He set more traps. Nails in floorboards. Broken bottles under windows. A tripwire rigged with a hammer swing. He turned to Ivy. "We can't just wait anymore." "What are you saying?" "I'm going after her. You stay. Hidden. If I'm not back before dawn, you run." "I won't leave you," she said. "You will," Ethan said, gripping her shoulder. "Because I'm not the one who's going to rebuild their life." He paused. "You are." Reese's trap Ethan left at 3:14 a.m. Fog had returned. In the woods he saw candles arranged in a perfect circle. Strange. Precise. Like an altar. In the center, a photograph of Ivy, pinned to a tree with a knife. He approached cautiously. A whisper. Behind him. "You came." Reese struck from above. She'd climbed the tree. They fought in brutal silence. Reese slashed him with a hooked blade, tearing across his chest. Ethan struck back with a crowbar. She laughed through bloodied teeth. "You're just like him, not even close." He slammed her head into the tree, over and over, until she stopped moving. Meanwhile, Ivy wandered the house in a haze. She found the old photo Ethan had packed. His unit in Afghanistan. She found his letter, unread, addressed to Emily. She opened it. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone." Tears filled her eyes. Then, a knock, soft. 3 taps. She stood, opened the door, and found herself face to face with Logan. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just held out his hand. "Come with me," he said, "or I go inside and make what happened to Sam look like a fairy tale." She didn't move. Logan stepped forward. Ivy raised the pistol and fired. Back in the woods, Ethan heard the shot and ran. Ethan burst into the cabin. Smoke hung in the air. Ivy stood near the fireplace, shaking, gun still raised. Logan lay on the floor, bleeding but alive, just smiling. "I told you," he whispered. "You're the one who breaks." The cabin burned with silence after the shot. Logan Cross lay sprawled on the wooden floor, bleeding from the shoulder. Ivy stood over him, pistol shaking in her hand, her eyes blank. Ethan burst through the door seconds later, panting, shirt torn and chest streaked with blood from his fight with Reese. His eyes met Ivy's, and then dropped to Logan. Still alive. Still smiling. "Move," Ethan barked. But Ivy stood frozen. She was trembling so violently it seemed her bones might rattle out of her skin. Ethan approached slowly, lifted the pistol from her hands. Logan's voice was soft, mocking. "That's twice now you didn't finish it, Ivy." Ethan slammed his boot against Logan's chest. "You don't get the last word," but Logan's grin widened. "You sure about that?" They tied him to the rocking chair, rope around wrists, ankles, and throat. Ethan double-knotted every loop. Logan didn't resist. He looked like a man who enjoyed being restrained. "I've seen worse," Logan muttered. "In basements, backyards, motel rooms. This is nostalgia." Ethan stuffed a rag in his mouth, then turned to Ivy. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. She walked to the sink and stared at the dried blood under her nails. Then, finally, she whispered, "I need to tell you something. About Logan." Ethan nodded once. "Say it." Flashback. Ivy's truth. 2 years ago, Ivy was a college dropout working at a roadside diner in Nebraska. Logan had been a customer. Charming, funny, over-tipping. At first. Then came the late-night flowers. Then the calls to her job. Then the messages about how pretty you looked at 3:17 p.m. today. She moved. He found her. Then she disappeared. For 3 weeks her parents filed reports. Ivy was underground, in Logan's private hunting cabin, where he had broken others before her. She escaped by biting through his hand and running barefoot through a swamp. She never told anyone, just vanished again, until Logan found her and started over. Back in the present, Ethan leaned against the wall, blood soaked through his shirt. "You should have told someone," he said quietly. "I was ashamed." "You still are." Ivy nodded, eyes hollow. "He took everything from me, piece by piece, and now I want to take something back." She picked up a hammer. They began sealing the cabin, windows boarded, doors reinforced. The traps Ethan had set earlier were rearmed and doubled, broken glass across the floorboards, knives tied to tripwire, oil slicks on the back steps. The cabin became a kill zone. "I want him to hear every nail I hammer," Ivy said. "Let him know we're building his coffin." Ethan helped, silently. It was no longer about surviving. It was about revenge. Sundown Logan still sat in the chair, eyes half-lidded, humming behind the gag. Ethan approached him with a toolbox and pulled out a pair of pliers. "I want names," Ethan said. Logan blinked slowly. Ethan removed the gag. Logan spat blood. "You don't understand what Reese and I were doing out here," he said softly. "It wasn't just fun, it was spiritual. Like shedding the skin of the world." "You're insane," Ivy muttered. "No," Logan smiled. "You're deliciously predictable, and now you're just like me." Ethan shoved the gag back in. "I've killed men in sandstorms for less than that." The storm cellar. Ethan brought Ivy into the cellar to find spare ammo and food. Instead, they found a locked trunk under the stairs. Inside were Polaroids. Hundreds. Women. Men. Dead or dying. Some photos were labeled Maya, Derek, Sadie, June, Tobias. Ethan rifled through them with shaking hands. They weren't just thrill killers, he said. This was a network. Ivy picked up a photo of herself, tied to a chair, eyes swollen. Ethan watched her carefully. "You don't have to look." "I do," she said. And she kept looking until she saw the one with her boyfriend, Sam, unrecognizable, but wearing the same sneakers he died in. She didn't cry. She whispered, "We kill him tonight." Nightfall. Ethan sat beside Logan. "You were ex-military," Ethan said. "I've seen your stance. You're calm. You were trained." Logan smiled under the gag. "I want to know who taught you to kill civilians." Logan didn't respond. "Doesn't matter," Ethan muttered. "You won't make it to sunrise." Logan escapes around 2:17 a.m. The lights flickered. Ivy checked the generator. Still running. Then she heard it, a dragging sound upstairs. She ran back in. Logan's chair was empty, rope shredded. A trail of blood and footprints leading to the rear wall. "I secured him," Ethan growled. "He was bleeding out. He couldn't—" "I'll find him," Ivy said. "I know where he'll go." Ethan paused. "Where?" Ivy stared into the trees, back to where he broke me. They followed the trail through the woods, rifles in hand. The trees twisted. Fog returned. Then, an opening. Ivy's old cage. An abandoned structure half buried under bramble and moss. Logan sat inside, laughing. I knew you'd come. He raised a revolver. Ethan fired first. Logan went down, bleeding from the leg, but still alive. You don't get to die clean, Ivy said. She picked up his own revolver and slowly carved his initials into his chest. Logan never screamed. He only smiled until his mouth filled with blood. Then, finally, he stopped breathing. They burned the body. Ethan and Ivy watched as the smoke curled into the stars. They walked back to the cabin, together, their bodies broken, souls cracked. But for the first time, there was no one watching. The sun had not yet risen. The woods stood in silent mourning as smoke curled above the treetops from the pyre where Logan Cross's body had burned. Ivy Monroe stood beside Ethan Granger in the dirt clearing, eyes red, from ash and exhaustion. Her knuckles were white from how tightly she held the revolver. Logan's initials were still carved into the earth, a smear of soot and blood, blackening under their boots. Neither of them spoke as they walked back toward the cabin. It felt colder now, not because of the wind, but because something in the forest had changed. Back at the cabin, the door hung open. It hadn't been open when they left. Ethan raised his rifle, but the house was quiet. Still. The traps were untouched. Inside, the bloodstains from their battle still marked the floors. Logan's chair remained toppled in the corner. The kitchen light flickered faintly, powered by the sputtering generator. Ivy scanned the room and whispered, "Why does it still feel like he's here?" Ethan didn't answer, because he felt it too. They slept in shifts. Ethan watched the forest. Ivy curled on the couch with a blanket and one eye always open. At 3:33 a.m., Ethan heard it, footsteps on the roof. He bolted upright. No one was outside, but the rocking chair was moving, back and forth, empty. Dawn, a blood-red sun pushed over the trees. Ethan finally breathed again. The worst was over, until a sharp click echoed in the hallway. He turned and saw Reese, standing in the hallway. Her hair was scorched, skin blistered from the earlier fire. Her left eye was missing, but she stood there, alive, or something close to it. Ivy gasped. "You died," Ethan said, raising the rifle. Reese smiled. "Death doesn't stick in places like this," she rasped. Reese lunged, fast, too fast. Ethan fired. The shot hit, but she kept coming. They fought in the narrow kitchen, knives, fists, broken plates. Reese bit Ethan's arm, tearing through muscle. He screamed, slammed her against the wall. Ivy grabbed the revolver, aimed, hesitated, then pulled the trigger. Click, empty. Reese knocked her aside, turned toward Ethan, but Ethan had found the crowbar. With a roar, he brought it down, again and again, until Reese was nothing but blood and broken bone on the linoleum. The silence afterward felt cosmic, final, permanent. They watched the sun rise from the porch. Smoke from Reese's body drifted up into the pale sky, curling like a final curse. Ivy rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. He didn't move. "You think they were the only ones?" she asked softly. "No," he said. "I think there are more." "You think they'll come here?" He shook his head. "No, because we'll burn it before they do." They emptied every container of gasoline in the shed, poured it across every room. The traps, the stained bedsheets, Logan's chair. Ivy struck the match. The cabin went up in a roar of orange flame. They walked the road in silence, bloody, tired, alive. Miles ahead, a ranger station waited. Radio, phone, food, help. As they reached the ridge, Ivy turned back. Only smoke remained. No sign of the cabin. No sign it had ever existed. Weeks later, Ethan stood in a veterans clinic. He sat across from a counselor. When asked about what he had been through, Ethan said only one thing. I went up there to die. She went up there to escape, but the house, it turned both of us into something else. In a dim police evidence locker, a sealed bag is marked. Logan Cross, personal effects, inside, a burned revolver, a knife engraved with, to Ivy, you're mine forever. A Polaroid photo that was never in the cabin. The photo shows Ethan and Ivy asleep, together. Taken from outside the cabin window, and behind them, barely visible in the glass, a face still smiling. Story 2. The road stops remembering where it's supposed to go. It's dusk, and the hills are bleeding rust under the dying light. The car sputters over cracked gravel, every bump whispering like broken teeth under rubber. Grace leans against the passenger window, filming. She wants old trees. She wants fog. She wants cinematic. What they get is a town that shouldn't be here. Stoker Hollow. The map doesn't list it. The GPS loops endlessly, and yet here it stands, still as a photograph, wilted around the edges, like someone left it too long in the sun. Michael slows. The car, the sign creaks above them, swinging even though there's no wind. Welcome to Stoker Hollow, a town that time forgot. The F in forgot is crossed out. Under it, a jagged, childlike scrawl. A town that time buried. Grace smiles intrigued. This is perfect. Michael grips the wheel harder. This place looks condemned. The camera rolls anyway. They park near an old general store. Windows boarded. A single boot hangs from a power line, like it got tired of running. Grace films it like it's art. Every building seems to lean, not from age, but as if watching them sideways. They walk. Past a gas station missing pumps. Past a church with windows stained black. Past homes with yards full of toys, rusted, forgotten, not moved in years. And then they find it. The house. It isn't listed on any tour. No brochure, no sign, just sitting there, too intact for its surroundings, too aware. Michael doesn't want to go closer. He says nothing. But the house hears him anyway. Grace, always chasing the next scare, walks right up to the gate. That's when they meet him, an old man, no footsteps, just there behind them, eyes clouded but fixed. You filming? He rasps. Grace nods. We're doing a horror doc, urban legends. This town has one. He smiles. No teeth. Just gums the color of smoked meat. They called him the surgeon of flesh. Used to take him apart piece by piece. Not to kill him, mind you. He wanted to see what was inside people's fear. Said if you opened the right person, the right way, they'd keep screaming even after the lungs were gone. Michael chuckles nervously. Is that true? The old man shrugs. Depends what you believe in. He points to the house. Said that's where he lived. Basement still got chains on the walls. If you go in, don't go down. Grace is already filming the house. Perfect! The man turns, vanishes, no footsteps. Michael swears under his breath. They return to the car. Night has arrived, without asking. The stars hang low, too low, as if the sky is leaning in to listen. Grace watches the house through the windshield. The porch light flickers once, but there's no electricity here. Hasn't been for decades. She grabs the camera again. We're going inside. They step through the door, and the house exhales. It's not a breath, not air. It's memory. Dust rises not from footsteps, but from recognition. It knows them. The living room is still dressed for guests who never left. Wallpaper peels like dead skin. A rotary phone hangs loose from its cord. Not dead, just listening. Grace films everything. The camera doesn't shake in her hand. But inside, she's shivering. Michael stays close behind, but not because he's afraid for her. He's afraid of being alone in this place, even for a second. The floorboards don't creak. They groan, not from weight, but from warning. Every step feels like they're stepping on something unseen. Grace pans the camera across the room. Every angle feels wrong. The corners curve. The shadows stretch too far. And then the air changes. Not colder, heavier. Like grief in solid form. Grace stops. Her lens focuses on a mirror hanging above the fireplace. But it doesn't show her. It doesn't show the room. It shows something else entirely. A girl, maybe 10, in a white hospital gown, mouth sewn shut, standing in the room, staring straight into the mirror, straight into Grace, then gone. Just Grace's reflection again. She lowers the camera. Her voice, barely a breath. "Did you?" Michael shakes his head, eyes wide. "I didn't see, but I felt." The house agrees. The chandelier above them sways. No breeze. They find the staircase. The wood is stained dark, not with paint. The color seeps down the wall like something bled upstairs. Grace wants to go. Michael hesitates. "I think this is where people stopped pretending." She looks at him. No one's pretending anymore. Upstairs there are 3 doors. Each, one painted a slightly different shade of wrong. One has scratch marks at the base. One has a hole punched straight through, fist-sized, still splintered. One is sealed shut with red string. They choose the first. The door opens itself. Inside, a child's bedroom, but not staged, not decorative, preserved. The bed is unmade. The toy chest is still open. A single stuffed rabbit lies on the floor, facing the wall. Grace picks up the camera again. The rabbit turns its head on its own. Michael swears. Grace backs up. And then the music starts. A soft lullaby, distant, like from another floor. But there is no attic, only down. The floor plan showed only crawl space. But the stairs spiraled downward, deeper than the house should allow, deeper than the earth should permit. Grace steps first. Her light cuts through the dark like a needle. Michael follows, flashlight off, not by choice. The beam died the moment his foot touched the first step, as if the house said, "One light is enough." The air is different here. Stale, but not abandoned. Recently breathed. They reach the base, not dirt, not cement, but tile. Glossy, beige, hospital clean, but layered in grime like it's been forgotten for remembering. A single hallway stretches before them, lined with old photographs, but the faces are blurred, not by time, by deliberate scratching. Michael lingers on one. The eyes are gouged, out with something sharp. A name scrawled beneath in pencil. Before they understood. He doesn't ask Grace what it means, because he knows she doesn't want to know. They walk on. A red door waits at the end. Steel. Heavy. No handle. But as Grace lifts her camera, it opens. Not a creak. A hiss. Inside, a room. Windowless. Sterile. lit by a single overhead lamp that flickers like a dying thought. Surgical tables. One is clean, the other is not. The walls are lined with shelves, not books, not tools, bodies. Preserved in glass tanks, or fragments of them. Hands with no arms. Eyes floating alone. Michael chokes. Grace does not. She approaches the clean table. There's something lying on it, a journal, bound in skin, locked shut. She touches it, and the light goes out, total blackness, and then the whispering starts. Male, calm, practiced, not complete, not pure. They move too much. Footsteps, soft, measured. Michael breathes loud, too loud. The whisper again. Still breathing. Still ruining the symmetry. Grace whispers back, voice shaking. Run! They do. Back up the stairs, but the house resists. The steps are longer now, twisted, Escher-like. They take turns that don't exist, and in every turn, mirrors, showing the red room, still illuminated, but no one is in the reflection. No Grace, no Michael, only a man in a surgeon's coat sharpening something unseen. They burst through the kitchen door. It's morning, or it should be. The clock says 8:04 a.m., but the sun is wrong. It doesn't rise. It waits, and it watches. The front door is locked. Grace turns. Behind them, the living room is now tiled, the same beige tile from below, and on the wall, written in medical ink. His work wasn't finished. There was no room 9. The hallway counted to 8. 8 rooms, 8 doors. Even spacing, even breathing. But Grace found it in the journal, page 49, written in erratic ink. Don't forget 9. She still sings when it's dark. Michael stares at the wall between room 8 and the linen closet. It feels too wide. Like the wall is fatter than it should be. He knocks. It knocks back. Once. Then again. 3 times. Slower. A rhythm. A song. Grace doesn't run. She marks the spot with chalk. That night, the knocking continues. Not from inside, from under the floor, beneath the bed, then the ceiling, then the mirror. Every reflection shows 9 doors. But the hallway still has 8. Until morning. When the sun rises, the hallway has changed. Subtle. But there. The linen closet is gone. In its place, a wooden door, darker than the rest. Splintered, painted over again and again, as if someone was trying to erase it with color. On the brass plaque, room 9. And beneath, carved through with something jagged, don't open if she's singing, but Grace does. The door resists, its sighs like lungs collapsing. It opens with the sound of something wet being peeled. Inside is not a room. It is a box. No windows. No bed. Only chains. And something wrapped in stained sheets. Or what looks like sheets. Michael flicks his flashlight. The bulb cracks. Glass showers the floor. The thing in the center of the room shifts. Grace whispers, "It's not breathing." Michael, "Then why are we holding ours?" The room is freezing. Not cold. Void. Soundless. They don't speak again. They only look. The thing in the sheets looks human, but too long. Too narrow at the shoulders. Too still. And around, the room, writing. Scratched into the wall with something harder than nails. She wanted out, so he took her skin, Michael steps back. Grace sees it now. The sheet is not fabric. It's a dress of stitched flesh. They leave. They try to leave, but the hallway is gone. There is only room 9 over and over. It repeats like a mirror loop, each copy more decayed than the last. In one, the door bleeds. In another, the door sings. In the final one, the door opens on its own, and something crawls out. They should have never opened the door with the dented latch, the one behind the staff lockers, past the wall where mold grows in the shape of hands. The hallway behind it is low, claustrophobic, built for something smaller than men. Michael's flashlight flickers with every step, as if the light is being eaten by the dark. Grace runs her fingers along the walls. There are scratches, not horizontal, vertical, dragged downward, like someone being pulled by the feet. The hallway ends at a thick metal door, the kind found in meat lockers. Above it, in faded red paint, "Do not enter unless filming." Below that, in something darker than paint, "We are always filming." Michael forces the door open. Inside is a square room, soundproofed, windowless, cold. In the center, a table, steel, bolted to the ground. Leather straps dangle from the corners like tongues. Above it, hanging from the ceiling, a dusty film camera, still blinking red. It's been recording for years. Grace doesn't speak. Michael steps in and immediately slips on dried blood. There are tapes, hundreds, stacked in milk crates along the far wall, unlabeled, unnumbered, except one, taped to the wall, labeled with a trembling hand. Grace. She plays it, static. Then, a woman, younger than Grace, strapped to the table. She's crying, not in fear, in shame. "I didn't mean to leave the door open," she whispers. "Please." Not the eyes again. The camera pans shakily. Something wet hits the lens, and then the screen turns black. Grace shuts it off, but the audio keeps playing. Behind them, the table creaks. Michael turns. The straps are curled differently now, as if they've just been released. Something scuttles into the shadows, too fast to follow. Grace's name echoes from the camera, not from the tape, from the machine itself. "Grace," whispered, then louder. "Grace." And then, not a whisper, a scream. They run. But the hallway has changed. The door they came through is gone. Now it's just rows of doors, all padded, all closed, all locked, except one. Room 33. Michael opens it. Inside, a smaller version of the table, straps already fastened, and a screen, playing Grace's tape. Again, except now, the woman on the table is her, present day. Same clothes, same blood on her cheek, and behind her, something with a lens for a face. Grace backs away, but the screen keeps going. On it, she starts screaming and screaming until the audio bleeds into real sound from the room down the hall. There is no light behind the mirror, only a seam in the drywall sealed with rusted bolts and tar. Room 303 smells like smoke and wet wires, like something short-circuited long ago and kept sparking in silence. Michael taps the mirror. It hums. The glass is too clear, not reflective, but watchful. Grace holds the camera. It shows nothing, until she rewinds. Frame by frame, a hand appears, not hers, not Michael's. Pale, fingernails missing, pressed inside the mirror, tapping back. They pry it open. Behind the mirror is a square hole, just wide enough to crawl through, Michael shines the flashlight, but the light bends backward, like it's being redirected. The crawl space isn't empty. It opens into another hallway. And down that hallway, room 303 again, but the door is reversed. And the plaque reads 303E. Grace steps in first. The walls pulse like lungs. The air smells like wet cloth and iron, and their reflections are waiting. Their mirror selves don't move in sync. They blink wrong, smile too long, tilt their heads like curious animals, and in the reflection, the camera is held by someone else, someone with no face at all. They run, but the hallway has changed again. The mirrored hotel is wrong in 1,000 small ways. Doors open too tall. Ceilings drip red. Guests walk backward, muttering prayers that sound like counting, and in every window, the same face. The man with no face. The one from the tapes. The one behind the camera. The one that watches and waits and never speaks, because his mouth is always open, like he's still screaming from the first victim and hasn't stopped since. Grace sees herself in one mirror, screaming, but no sound comes out. Michael isn't beside her anymore, just his reflection, grinning, bleeding, pointing. She follows the trail, room after room, each one playing a scene from the footage they found. A girl tied to a chair, a boy gagged with celluloid tape, a man dissected with care, like film being spliced, and then, finally, room 0. Inside, a cinema, projector running, seats filled with mannequins, all facing forward, on screen. Grace and Michael, footage she hasn't seen, moments yet to happen, moments she won't survive. She screams, and the mannequins turn their heads, one by one, until the last row, where the man with no face sits, clapping. The screen cracks, the projector sputters, and the film burns through. The whole room tilts. Gravity forgets its rules, and Grace falls. Through the screen, into black. Story 3. The camera begins with a hiss, soft, breath-like. Tanner calls action, with the shaky authority of a film student pretending he isn't afraid. Autumn light drips through skeletal branches, painting everything gold and false. The girl in front of the camera, Erica, stands still in her torn costume, pretending to be hunted. She doesn't realize yet how accurate she is. Behind the lens, Ryan adjusts focus, muttering about exposure, but it doesn't matter. The lens sees things the eye shouldn't. It's already capturing more than it should. Leaves crackle, not from wind, but from breathless motion. Unscripted, uninvited. This is great, Tanner says, stepping back. Looks real. Erica looks past the camera. Her eyes sharpen, then soften in a way that isn't acting. Her lips part like she's about to say something. Instead, she walks out of frame. "Cut?" Ryan asks, but his voice is small, drowned. No. One told her to move. No one follows. The camera keeps rolling. They laugh at first, the laugh people use when they're trying to keep something out. "Maybe she had to pee," Tanner offers. Without saying anything, the lens still captures trees swaying too slowly. Shadows don't match the branches above. Something is off, but the kind of off that lives beneath words, crawling beneath skin, unformed and undeniable. Minutes pass. Erica doesn't return. Ryan turns the camera off, then on again. He claims it glitched, but later he won't remember pressing the button either time. They call her name. Once, then again. No answer, no echo. The woods eat sound like meat. They split up, reluctantly. Tanner heads left, Ryan right. The sun falls faster than it should. like it's trying to hide. He walks with the confidence of someone raised in suburbia, unused to silence without ceiling fans or cars in the distance. Branches snag at his hoodie, as if the forest is reaching for a taste of him. He mutters curses, but the air drinks them. There's something hanging from a tree. A strip of Erica's costume? No. A ribbon of flesh-colored fabric, maybe. It pulses. He steps back. Trips. When he looks again, it's gone. A growl rolls low through the earth. Not loud, not clear. A suggestion of a sound, buried deep. He runs. The path behind him swallows itself. He calls Erica's name, but the camera is still in his hands, still recording. He doesn't know why. Maybe because he wants to prove to himself that it's not real. The lens flickers. In the viewfinder, he sees her, standing at the edge of the frame. Still. Too still. He looks up. She isn't there, only on tape, and she's moving now, but not walking. She's gliding, twitching between trees like she's made of skipped frames and stifled breath. He drops the camera, picks it up again. The footage plays back nothing. Just trees. Just dark. They return to the clearing. No Erica, no wind. "Let's go," Ryan whispers. Tanner doesn't argue, but as they step away, something clicks behind them. The sound of a camera rolling without them. They turn. No camera there. But the sound keeps going. A slow, grinding film reel chewing on silence. They walk faster. The trees narrow. The clearing disappears too soon. They should be back at the road, but they aren't. They walk faster still. Then they run. They pass the same fallen log. Twice. They scream her name like it will wake her up. Like it will wake them up. But the woods are dreaming, and it's too late now. When they stop, finally, the air is different. Thicker. Smelling like copper and celluloid. Ryan lifts the camera again. Not because he wants to, but because he feels watched. If the camera sees, maybe the thing behind them won't. He presses record. A face stares back through the screen. Not Erica, not anyone, just teeth and static. They don't sleep that night. They huddle near a stump, pretending it's shelter. The stars are wrong. Too many, too close. At some point, the camera records by itself. It pans slowly, smoothly, like it's being held, but they are both in frame. Sleeping. Something else is behind the lens. Breathing. The footage ends with static that doesn't stop. Even when the camera is turned off, the reel spins. As if something is still filming them. Just not for them. To watch. Tanner walks ahead now. He hasn't spoken in 20 minutes. Not since the second time they passed the same tree marked with red tape, the kind they'd used earlier to mark their filming location. Only they hadn't placed it there, not that far in. Ryan follows, still clutching the camera like it's holy. He tells himself it's proof. That all this somehow will make sense when watched from a safe distance. But the footage trembles. Slight, soft shaking like a breath behind glass. The audio hums. Whispers flicker across frequencies the human ear can't hold. They call her name again. Erica. The way one might say it at a funeral. Not hope. Ritual. Behind them, a twig snaps. Tanner turns too fast. Nothing. Just trees. Tall and close, like they've been listening. There's no signal. Ryan mutters, checking his phone for the 5th time. There was yesterday. Yesterday wasn't here. That silences them both. They find her shoe first. Not abandoned. Displayed. Balanced carefully on a stump. Clean. As if set down by a mother arranging a child's belongings. It points east. deeper. Tanner picks it up. It's warm. He drops it. The sound it makes. Not rubber on wood, but flesh on flesh. A wet sound. A mistake. They don't speak of it again. Later, the path splits. Left. Darker. Damp. Right. A faint glimmer of light. They choose right, because they want to believe there's still a road. Still rules. But light can lie too. The further they walk, the more unnatural the brightness feels. Like it's not coming from above, but from within the trees. Pale blue. Flickering. Like a film projector stuttering behind bark. Ryan lifts the camera, hesitates, then records. In the viewfinder, the trees sway, but the air is still. In the corner of the frame, something moves. A hand, a blur of pale skin, nails long, curled inward like hooks. It's gone when he blinks. He lowers the camera. Behind him, soft laughter. Not Erica's, not human. He doesn't tell Tanner. They reach a clearing. The light fades instantly, as if ashamed. At the center, a pile of their gear, their props, makeup kit, battery packs, arranged neatly. On top, the bloody edge of Erica's costume. Torn, not cut. Beside it, the director's clapperboard. It's smeared in something dark. Across it, someone has written, "Take 2 Tanner stairs, swallows." "We didn't," he begins, but never finishes, because the air behind them moves. They spin, but nothing follows. Not where they can see, only where they can feel. Ryan hears it first, the sound of pacing, right beside him, but on leaves that don't crunch. He turns the camera to his own side. Nothing there, but the audio spikes. There is a voice, hidden under distortion. "Don't follow the footsteps. They're not yours." He rewinds. Plays again. Nothing. Just wind. Tanner's lips are pale. "Let's leave it. Let's just go." Ryan nods, but something inside him already knows. They are not meant to leave with answers. They are meant to leave as warnings. They turn around, try to retrace their steps, but the path has changed. Bent like memory, the red tape is gone. Now, there are carvings in the trees, runes maybe, or symbols, each one shaped like an eye, and each eye bleeds sap that smells like iron and old tape glue. Tanner touches one. His finger twitches. His nose bleeds. He doesn't scream, just stares. Ahead, night falls too quickly, and with it, silence sharp enough to hear thoughts echo. Ryan switches to night vision. The screen glows green. In it, Tanner is pale, ghost-like. Behind him, something else. A shape. Too tall, too thin. No details, just absence. Ryan blinks. It's gone, but the feeling remains. Like the woods themselves are holding their breath. They stop near a fallen tree. Sit. They don't sleep. Tanner chews the inside of his cheek raw. Ryan replays old footage to stay awake. In one clip, Erica is smiling. Not for the camera, for someone behind it. Her eyes are wide, too wide. And in the reflection of her iris, a figure, the same absence, the same shape, always there, just out of focus. The wind starts again, slow and circular. It brings the smell of ash and hair, and a new sound. Footsteps, crunching leaves. Coming closer, Ryan doesn't dare look. Tanner does. His mouth opens slowly, but no words come out. Instead, he laughs. Soft, detached, like he's just remembered a joke from a dream. Then his eyes roll back, and he slumps sideways. The camera shakes. Ryan crawls to him, but Tanner is breathing, faint, but breathing, and on the ground beside him, a new clapperboard. This one etched, not written. Take 3. In the darkness, something walks past them, dragging its limbs behind it like forgotten stories. Its footprints are silent, because they are made in the space where sound used to live. The footage begins with static. Not loud, not sharp, but soft, like whispering fog curling across the screen. Detective Mason Carter leans forward. He has reviewed hundreds of tapes over the years. Interrogations, surveillance, confessions. But nothing like this. The screen flickers. The woods appear. Quiet, empty, but only at first. Beside him, Detective Elena Voss takes notes. She doesn't intend to read again. Her eyes are locked on the screen, but her mind drifts. There's something wrong with how this tape breathes. In the footage, a boy speaks. Ryan, the camera operator. His voice shakes, but keeps the cadence of a student filmmaker trying to sound in control. The girl, Erica, isn't in frame. She never reappears. Instead, the trees crowd closer with every second, like they lean in when no one's watching. Voss pauses the video. Rewinds. There, she whispers. A frame, just one, shows a figure, not standing, not walking, hanging. Not from a tree, but from the top of the screen, as if gravity forgot. Carter squints. Could be a glitch. Could be a warning, Voss answers. She presses play. The boys are running now. The footage trembles with motion but never loses its frame, as if something steadier than them is holding it. Ryan's voice breathes panic. Tanner mutters to himself, the same word over and over. Again. 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 The screen darkens. For 30 seconds, only black. But the timer counts forward. Sound returns, not of leaves, but of breathing. Labored, inhuman. A chest collapsing and reinflating slowly. Then, a click. The camera pans up without hands. In the night vision lens, Ryan and Tanner are sleeping. The detectives stiffen. The angle moves. Closer, hovering above their faces. A soft rasp, like a finger dragging across the lens. Then a voice. Not quite. Language. But close enough to understand. Take 4. Voss stops the tape. I want forensics to scan this audio, she says. Carter doesn't move. He's staring into the screen, as though afraid it will start again without them. He's breathing slower than usual. His fingers twitch against the edge of the table. This isn't just footage, he murmurs. It's persistence. Outside the room, the lights flicker. Just once. Inside, the air turns metallic. The kind of taste left behind by old blood or forgotten batteries. Voss opens her case file. 3 students missing. 1 shoe recovered. Camera smashed but tape intact. No signs of struggle. No tracks. No Erica. But the tape watches her. Voss rewinds. Finds the earlier scene. The smile Erica gives toward the lens. Behind her, the frame wobbles. The image distorts like heat over pavement. When stabilized, a figure stands behind her shoulder. Pale. Too tall. Its arms stretched down past its knees, but there's no record of it in the reflection. Only shadow. She zooms in, and it blinks. Carter stands abruptly. No more. Let's catalog it and move on. But Voss stays seated, because now the audio is looping, even though she's paused it. Take 4, take 4, take 4. Then silence. Then, you're not watching. You're being watched. Later that evening in Carter's apartment, He dreams of film reels unwinding themselves, not on machines, but on walls. The tape slithers like veins, wrapping around furniture, threading through sockets. In his dream, he tries to turn off the projector, but the screen is gone. Only his bedroom wall remains, and on it, footage of him, sleeping, from above. Back in the station, Voss watches the rest of the footage in a locked room. The final minutes are different. The camera is no longer carried. It hovers, following Ryan as he weeps beside a creek bed. His voice is quiet. I didn't mean to keep filming. It made me. It wants to see everything. It said it can't die if we watch it. Then he looks directly into the lens. His eyes are pale, not rolled back, emptied, the way light sometimes bleeds out of a lens that's been open too long. He whispers, "Please stop watching." It's how it gets in. The camera falls, the screen distorts. Then, another clapperboard appears in frame, etched in dirt and leaves. Take 5. Voss ejects the tape, places it in a lead case, calls for evidence lock, but before she seals it, she notices. The screen on the television is still playing. She never turned it back on, and what plays now isn't the tape, it's the interview room. Live feed, but the room is empty, except for her, standing inside, back to the camera, watching something none of the cameras should see. She turns around on screen. Slow. Eyes. White. Mouth open in a scream that makes no sound. And as Voss watches herself from the outside, she hears the tape whisper one final thing. You rewound too. Far. The monitor turns black, but in the silence, the clapperboard echoes again. Somewhere in the building, wood on tile, and on a desk where no one sits now. Take 6 is written in blood. The screen stutters, then locks, pixelated noise, bleeds across the top, but the image doesn't change. It's frozen, yet alive. A still frame, pulled from the tail end of the tape. Ryan, mid-scream. His mouth wide, his eyes collapsed inward. But it's what's behind him that draws the breath from Detective Elena Voss's throat. She leans in. The image warps slightly, refusing to settle. Behind Ryan's shoulder, a shape, just barely there. Blurred, long-limbed, face flat like it had been smoothed by hands that didn't understand human shape. Voss zooms. Pixels distort, stretch. The figure flickers, not forward, but deeper, as though it retreats into the screen the closer she looks. The lights in the evidence room dim. The hum of the monitors grows sharper, almost tuned to breath. Voss doesn't move. The image still holds her. She presses pause, then play, then rewind. Each time the figure becomes more visible, not by movement, by recognition, as if the screen adapts to her attention. What once looked like a smudge now has eyes, not glowing, just open, glass eyes, like camera lenses. The door behind her creaks. She turns. No one. Only the hallway outside. Still. Empty. The air carries a charge, the kind that hovers after someone has whispered your name. She locks the evidence room, closes the file, tells herself it's just corrupted footage. But when she walks away, the monitors do not turn off. They stay frozen on the frame. Ryan, screaming, and behind him, the shape turning, not toward him, toward the viewer. At home, Voss tries not to think about the image, but it lives behind her eyelids. In dreams, she walks through frames, each one a photograph that weeps when She steps through. The forest appears again, this time silent. Erica's voice calls from beneath leaves. I'm still rolling. She wakes sweating, breath ragged, and finds her TV on. The screen is black, but her own reflection isn't looking back. It's paused, mouth open, eyes wide, just like Ryan. Back at the station, Carter avoids the footage. He reviews statements, takes calls, pretends not to notice how often Voss checks over her shoulder, but something lingers. Every time he passes a security monitor, his own image hesitates. Just a blink behind, just a second off. He notices it once, his reflection blinking while he hasn't. He tells no one. Voss returns to the tape, frame by frame, second by second. She finds something new. At the exact moment the footage glitches, there's an overlay. Another image, transparent but intentional. A pattern, a shape. It isn't digital. It's carved into the frame, burned in. She enhances it. It forms a symbol, circular, with jagged edges spiraling inward, like teeth, a sigil. She's seen it before, in the bark of a tree they found in the forest. One never mentioned in the report, because that tree bled. The tech team confirms something else. The frame is impossible. The metadata shows the timestamp as negative, pre-recorded, as if the image existed before they filmed it. There is no rational explanation, only one whispered by a shaken intern in the lab. It's not playback. It's prophecy. Voss writes it all down, tries to form a timeline, but the notes rearrange themselves. What happened after the tape was found now appears before. Events fold inward, like the story is choosing its own sequence, like it's editing itself. At night, her apartment grows quieter, too quiet, the kind of quiet that hums behind the walls, waiting to speak. One night, she hears the soft click of a clapperboard, not in the room, in the screen. She turns, and there, on her paused security monitor, is a new label scrawled in red static, Take 7. She stares into the screen until her own reflection begins to smile without her. The image does not fade, because some scenes don't end when you cut to black. The woods stretch longer now, not wider, longer. Like a corridor someone keeps building ahead of their steps. Ryan's breathing is shallow, and his eyes are red-rimmed, not just from crying, but from watching too much that should not have been filmed. Tanner's footsteps crunch ahead. They haven't spoken since they found the second clapperboard. Since take 3 appeared carved into the dirt like it had been waiting there, waiting for its cue. The footage is still recording. The battery long since dead, and yet, it records. There is no blinking light, only a growing warmth in Ryan's hands, like the camera is feeding on his pulse. The woods seem to respond to their fear. The trees lean in, then straighten. Branches sway where there is no wind. Somewhere behind them, a sound rises and falls, like something dragging a microphone through leaves, not following them, pacing them. Ryan turns to record, but the screen stays black for 3 seconds longer than the lens is pointed. When it returns, his own back, retreating, his own footsteps, but filmed from somewhere behind, as if someone else is holding another camera. He turns quickly. No one, but the leaves are warm, and the air smells like film stock and rain. Tanner stops walking. His voice is barely human anymore. I keep seeing her. Ryan looks up. Tanner's mouth is trembling. She's in the trees, not on the ground, inside the bark. Her eyes, they're still blinking. Ryan doesn't speak. He's too focused on the way Tanner's shadow doesn't match his body. It bends wrong, reaches for Ryan. They argue, scream about blame, about getting out, about what's real. But the camera doesn't catch the words, just muffled noise, like someone trying to yell through water. And behind them, still, is the third camera. Every so often, the footage flickers, shows a view neither of them captured. A shape walking between trees, a voice humming, a girl's voice, Erica's, but the song has no melody, just syllables that ache when heard. They find another clearing, not the same, but the layout is familiar, too familiar. The exact same prop bag, undisturbed. The same makeup sponge, dried and cracked. But they never came back here, they both swear it. Still, the clapperboard waits in the center. Take 4. This one in bone. Tanner falls to his knees. He begins to repeat the script, lines he wrote. For Erica, but he says them like prayer, like confession. Ryan records him silently, because he knows what comes next. It's in the footage, already seen, already happened. That night, they do not rest. The sky has turned orange, not with sun, but with backlight, like the dome of the world is now a set, and they are props, movable, disposable. The camera glitches, flashes an image not seen before, a stage, rows of empty chairs, and in every seat, someone watching with no eyes. Ryan throws the camera. It doesn't break. It lands on its side, upright, still recording, still humming, still waiting. Tanner has stopped speaking. He stands at the edge of the clearing, staring at a tree with a hollow in its trunk. His head tilts slowly, unnaturally. Ryan approaches, whispers his name. Tanner doesn't blink. Instead, he reaches into the hollow and pulls out a strip of film, old, decaying. On it, Erica's face, looped, screaming. But the scream is backward. Ryan takes it, feels it pulse. The film doesn't bend. It resists, and on the back, take 5, scratched in what looks like fingernails. Tanner laughs now. Not with joy, with resignation. It's not filming us, he says. It's filming through us. We're not the story. We're the format. Ryan lifts the camera again, points it at the forest. The trees blur. The screen turns blue, then white, and then he sees something, not alive, not dead, just waiting. A tall figure, its head covered in film tape, its arms ending in microphones, and its face, a mirror. Ryan drops the camera, but the feed continues, on its own. It begins to pull away, slowly backing up, retreating, into the woods, as though someone else has taken the role. The boys vanish into the trees. The screen goes black. Then a burst of static, a final shot, Ryan looking straight into the lens. His eyes hollow, his mouth stitched shut with magnetic tape. Behind him, the mirror-faced figure raises the clapperboard. Take 6. The frame burns to white. The screen remains blank, but the audio keeps running. A girl's voice whispers, "Next time, don't stop filming." The evidence clerk finds the tape at 4:03 a.m., no delivery slip, no return address, just a box. Damp, soft at the edges, as if pulled from deep water. Inside, one unlabeled VHS cassette, wrapped in a strip of plastic film, melted into a crude bow. She places it on the desk, leaves a note, and never returns to work again. Not after what she claims followed her home. Not after the voices in the shower drain began whispering, "Take 7. Detective Elena Voss receives the package next. It hums. Not a machine hum. Organic. The vibration of breath held too long. She doesn't speak as she inserts the tape. Just stares at the screen, fingers poised but hesitant, as if pressing play might open something that was never meant to be closed. The screen goes black. Not off. Black. A purposeful black. Then static. Slow. Dreamlike. Like snow falling underwater. Voss leans in. There's no timestamp. No beeps. No familiar footage. Only a shape forming slowly from the noise. A room. Dim. Pale walls. A single chair. A figure sits in it. Head bowed. Wrist dripping onto the floor. A loop of tape snakes from their mouth, unspooling silently into a reel on the ground. The audio is silent, painfully so. Yet Voss feels it in her chest, a baseline of dread that thuds with each flicker. The figure in the chair lifts their head. Not Ryan, not Tanner, not Erica. Someone else, older, wearing a police badge. Carter. She freezes. It can't be. He's at home. She picks up her phone, dials. It rings once. Then she hears it, not through the phone. Through the speakers, a voicemail tone from inside the footage. The Carter on screen lifts the receiver slowly, puts it to his ear, and speaks one word. Rewind. The screen jumps. Now, a forest path, filmed from above but not a drone. Smoother, more alive, footsteps without feet, a presence without form. The camera dips. Approaches something hunched beneath a tree, Ryan hollow-eyed, mouth sewn shut. His fingers twitch over a pile of old clapperboards. He arranges them like bones in a ritual circle. Take 6, take 7, take 8, each scratched in with something. Sharp. Then the camera moves again, glides past him, toward a cave. The entrance is tight, wrapped in roots. Inside, Erica, alive. Maybe. She's not moving, but her eyes are open, watching the lens, not begging, accepting, like she knew the camera would come back. She lifts her hand, points toward the wall behind her. There, in crude carvings, is a symbol Voss has seen before. The eye-shaped spiral, the mark from the frame glitch, the mark on the tree, the mark that wasn't in any real file, but is burned in her memory all the same. The footage distorts, flashes again to the precinct hallway, shot from a corner security angle. Voss watches herself walk down the corridor, but she never made that walk. Not in this uniform. Not holding that case file. She's carrying something. A bundle wrapped in film stock. Her expression unreadable. Her eyes black. The camera cuts again. Now, it's inside her apartment, filming from the top corner like a mounted security cam. But she never installed one. There she is, asleep on the couch, breathing slow. Then the door creaks, not open. Inhale. The air pulls inward, like something has entered without moving matter. A shape moves past the lens, just enough for the screen to burn white, then static again. She ejects the tape. The VHS player whines, like a mouth forced to open again and again. The tape itself is warm, wet, not blood, not water, something in between. She places it back in the box, tries to seal it, but it doesn't close. The lid pops open over and over. The box wants to be seen. Later, Carter storms into her office. He's pale, sweating. "I had a dream," he mutters, "but I don't think it was mine." He holds up a sketch. It's the mark again. The spiral eye. He doesn't know why he drew it. Voss opens the drawer. There's another tape. It wasn't there before. Labeled in torn white sticker, playback. Final draft. One student's body is found, but not her voice. She's still speaking on the tape, alive after death. The voice directs them deeper, not toward answers, but toward reenactment. The detectives follow. They shouldn't. The body turns up in a ditch outside Stoker Hills. Not discovered. Delivered. Folded gently into the roots of an overturned tree, as if offered. No animals touched her. No insects. But her skin is the color of old paper. Dry. Drained. The coroner calls it advanced exsanguination. But there are no puncture wounds, no tears, no explanation. Erica Graves, the missing actress. Identified by fingerprints, confirmed by dental, but her mouth is sewn shut, and in her clenched hand, a strip of undeveloped 8mm film. Detective Voss doesn't sleep that night. Not because of the corpse, but because the voice from the new tape is Erica's. Alive. Clear. Reciting. Lines that don't exist in any script. Lines that sound like they were written after she died. Scene 7, the voice says. It's time to walk backward. Face first. Remember what you were before you were cast. Carter listens once. Just once. Then pulls the power cord. But the TV stays on. Erica's mouth moves on screen. Her voice now a whisper. Not spoken, but written directly into the sound. You are not the first audience. Later, a call comes in. Another tape. This time, found in the church basement. It wasn't there before. They know. That room had been searched 3 times. Sealed. Still. The box waits on the altar, with a projector. Already on. Already spinning. This tape isn't VHS. It's film, old, heavy, oily in the hand. They thread it carefully. It clicks into motion with the ease of something that never stopped. On the screen, footage of Erica, not in costume, not acting, speaking into camera with that too still stare. Don't follow the script, she says. It changes when you look away. Behind her, a wall of faces, blank, motionless, all wearing makeup, film students, but not from their team, from somewhere else, from before. Carter presses pause, but the reel spins faster. Erica begins to bleed from her scalp, hair falling in tufts. The image flickers, and suddenly, she's in the precinct interrogation room, not in costume, not on tape, filmed live. From an angle, no camera should be placed. Carter stumbles back, unplugs the machine. The image burns white. Smoke curls from the projector lens, not plastic. Hair. Voss checks the evidence locker. The first tape is gone. So is the second, and the clapperboard from the woods. Only the plastic box remains. Inside, a single photo, still frame. Erica, arms outstretched, like crucifixion. But the wires holding her up aren't stage harnesses. They're rolls of film, and each, one leads into the lens. The autopsy finishes 2 days later. The coroner finds something behind Erica's sternum, a hard object, not bone, not metal, a reel, miniature, wound tight with black ribbon, the words etched across it, final cut. Voss doesn't tell anyone. She keeps the reel in her drawer. At night, she hears it spinning, even when it's not there, even when she's miles away. Carter tries to leave the case, files a transfer. The request comes back stamped in red. Seen, not complete. They dig deeper, into the university records. Old film departments, missing students, and find patterns. Every 10 years, a project goes missing. Film students vanish, equipment found, tapes recovered, each labeled with the same marker, take 1. But Erica's voice on the most recent tape says otherwise. We're on take 9 now, she whispers. Each draft worse than the last, each one more real. You're in it now. You can't uncast yourself. The precinct's lights dim again. In the halls, Voss hears distant clapping. Wood on wood, like a director calling for quiet, like a scene, resetting. She looks out the window. Across the street, in the reflection of the glass, she sees herself, but the version that was on the tape. Pale, staring, lips moving, and in her hand, a clapperboard. She mouths it without sound. Take 10. Voss closes the blinds, locks her office. But the sound keeps playing. The sound of someone, walking just behind the wall. Soft, rehearsed, waiting for their cue. Behind the silence, a reel turns. Not in any machine, but in the space between frames. And in the hush before dawn, a voice speaks from nowhere. Places, everyone. The evidence room is full again, but no one logged anything. No one opened the door. Still, the shelves groan under the weight of tape reels and film canisters, all unlabeled, all damp with age. Detective Carter stands in the doorway, unmoving. Behind him, the hallway is brightly lit. Inside the room, it's dusk. He watches a single reel unspool, by itself, falling like a strand of hair to the floor. No wind, no movement, just motion. On the station's main screen, the new footage plays. Voss doesn't remember loading it. No one does. But the machine hums as if it's been playing for hours. A room they don't recognize. Floral wallpaper. A cracked mirror. The camera pans, slowly, lovingly, like it's savoring the moment. Carter appears in the frame. Not from the past. From now. In his current suit. With the same ink stain on his collar. The same files in his hand. He moves through the room in silence, unaware he's being filmed, and then he looks directly at the camera, eyes hollow, lips sewn shut. Voss blinks. The footage rewinds on its own, plays again, again. Each time, the expression on Carter's face slightly changes, from fear to grief to exhaustion to acceptance. The station printer coughs suddenly, spits out. A single sheet, not a document, a film schedule, typed in courier font, old, faded. At the bottom, a line. Carter leaves the precinct, or tries to. The doors won't open. His badge doesn't scan. The lights above flicker and dim. Outside, it's still midnight. The same minute. On every clock. 12 Kasher a.m., the second-hand spin. But the hour never changes. The phones are dead. The elevators breathe. Voss finds Carter in the stairwell. He doesn't speak at first. Then he says, "I think we're between takes," and shows her a photo that wasn't there before. A still frame from footage never filmed. She's in it, smiling, wearing clothes she's never owned, and behind her, Erica. But Erica's eyes are wide with terror. Voss's hand rests on her. Shoulder, too tight, possessive, as if she's holding Erica in place. The walls of the station begin to sweat. Film tape spills from air vents, coiling like snakes along the baseboards. Clapperboards line the hallway, each one reading a different take, each one dirtier, more splintered. Scene 1, Scene 5, Scene 9, Scene 0, the lights go out. Only the security screens remain lit. They flicker through angles no one programmed. A projection room with no people. A theater with velvet seats filled by shadows. a forest that grows into the walls of the station, the morgue, where Erica's body is missing, and finally, Voss and Carter's office. But the versions of them sitting there are older, tired, bleeding from their eyes. The camera angle drifts, slowly circling the room, as if deciding where to begin again. A drawer Voss never opened, she finds a script. Stamped, Stoker Hill's final shooting draft. She flips through it. The dialogue is familiar. Too familiar. Because it includes her words, her private thoughts. Lines she never said aloud, but meant, even now. The last page is blank, except for one line, centered and underlined. Loop begins again when belief fails. Carter starts to bleed. Not from a wound. From his ears, softly, like something inside him is leaking out through the sound. Voss pulls him into the break room, locks the door. The TV on the wall turns on by itself, static. Then, a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2. The screen flashes. They are in the woods, together, lost, filming, running. The memories rush in. Not real, but still theirs. Each scene sharper than the last, until it catches up to now. They stare into the screen, see themselves watching the screen, and behind them, in both rooms, the figure stands. Mirror for a face, camera in its chest, its fingers made of tape, clacking like claws. No footsteps, just the sound of breathing film. Carter whispers, "This isn't a recording." Voss finishes the thought. It's a live feed. They reach for the plug, but the image freezes them in place. Not violently, with recognition. Like a script finally meeting its actors, the loop begins. The hallway outside resets. Props realign. The clock rewinds, and Erica's voice echoes. Midnight. Again, reset action. They wake in their chairs, desks tidy, coffee hot. The air still, no sign of tapes, no sign of the woods. Carter looks at the time. Bam. Voss opens the drawer, the same script. Still unfinished. Still waiting for the final scene. A knock at the door. A package on the floor. Inside. A tape. Unlabeled. Still warm. Still humming. From down the hall, the sound of a clapperboard echoes once more. And a familiar voice says softly, with weary grace, "Take 11. The hallway stretches longer than before. Each step echoes differently now. Not against tile, but against bark. Muffled, damp. Carter moves slower, as if the air thickens around him with every breath. He's holding the tape. The new one. Unlabeled, humming faintly against his palm like a purring animal that doesn't trust you yet. He doesn't remember picking it up. Only that it was waiting, right outside his door, wrapped in black ribbon, stamped with a symbol he's forgotten and still fears. Voss isn't in her office, but her coffee is still warm. The lights still flicker in that rhythmic pulse, the kind you feel in your jaw more than your eyes. Carter loads the tape. This time, it doesn't spin. It breathes. A slow inhale. Then the screen ignites. Not with fire, with sight. The figure is there, no longer hidden. Standing in the middle of a clearing, film spooling from its arms like veins. No face, only a mask. Smooth, round, reflective, and, in its surface, Carter's own reflection, but flickering. Each flicker a version of himself that never returned from the woods. One with his eyes torn out, one with his tongue replaced by real tape, one smiling, just smiling. The mask tilts. Not in curiosity, in recognition. It knows him. It always did. The footage plays backward suddenly. Trees regrow. Blood pulls itself from the dirt. Words unspoken. Rewind into mouths. Erica smiles again. But now Carter sees it. Not joy, not fear. Resignation. She mouths something. He leans in, but the screen blinks. Just once. And the mask appears again. Closer. Now inside the precinct. Walking past desks. Past the file room. Toward the interrogation hallway. The footage follows it, as though the building itself wants him to see. The lights above the hallway burn out one by one. Click, 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 until only the mask remains in the dark. Breathing. Carter tries to pause. The remote doesn't respond. He tries to eject the tape. The tray melts shut. A hiss of static rolls from the speakers, not loud, but wet, like something rotting inside the sound. Then, finally, a door opens in the footage, and behind it, a room not part of this building, a forest, night-soaked, silent. The mask walks in, and Carter feels his own legs begin to move, not consciously, not by choice, but by memory. He's been there. He's walked this before, just not in this life. Down the hallway now, real one. Lights flicker behind him. Stay off. He turns a corner, finds Voss standing in the dark. She's holding something. A mirror. No, not a mirror. The mask. But she's looking into it, not through it, and her eyes are full of someone else's memories. Don't let it film you, she says quietly, but her voice is doubled, like someone else is speaking with her mouth. You vanish by inches. First your name, then your past, then your shape. She hands him the mask. He doesn't want to hold it, but it's already in his hands. It's heavier than it looks, smooth on one side. On the other, skin, stretched, stitched into the edges. He sees letters carved faintly into the leather. Scene 12. Carter drops it, but it floats. Hovers above the floor like dust caught in a projector beam. Then it rushes forward, not toward his body, but his image, and the screen in the main. Room flashes to life. Carter as he is now, standing, breathing, and behind him, the mask slipping over his face. He screams, but the sound doesn't leave his throat. Instead it plays over the speakers, delayed by 3 seconds. Each syllable stretched, slowed, like the scream has to pass through a reel before reaching the air. Voss moves toward him, but Carter backs away, into the stairwell, and the steps twist downward now, not in geometry, but in memory. Each floor a different moment, a different cut. Carter questioning Erica's disappearance. Carter screaming in a clearing. Carter walking away from the precinct and vanishing into trees, and one he doesn't remember. Carter holding the camera, pointed at Voss, saying, "Places, everyone." He trips, falls into the final step, the basement. But there is no basement, only the clearing. Back again, the same log, the same tree, the same clapperboard. Take 12. The mask lies on the stump. He's alone, except he's not, because the camera is already recording, already moving, already circling him. The screen in the precinct plays it all. Live. Voss watches, mouth trembling, because she hears herself laughing. On the tape, from beside the camera. Not now, before, or after. Time is out of order. Carter stands, looks into the lens. His voice is broken now, like a badly dubbed line. It's not just recording us. It's learning how to become us. The trees move. Like lungs, the sky blinks, and the mask at last speaks, not in voice, but in vision. A memory not his, Erica screaming, being dragged by film, mouth open, tongue cut, but still acting, still in character. Carter kneels, the mask lowers, not onto his face, into his shadow, where it waits, where it replaces. In the real world, the screen goes black, but the hum of recording never stops. Not now that the mask knows a new shape to wear. It begins again, a new tape. This one marked with a seal, circular, jagged, cracked like a reel caught in flame. A wax emblem no one recognizes, except Voss. Not from memory, but from dreams. She's seen this symbol in the corners of her sleep, on the edges of walls that shouldn't exist, in the pupils of people she once trusted. The wax is warm, like the seal was just pressed, but no one mailed it, no one touched it. It just arrived. The label reads, "Final Cut, Director's Version." Not handwritten, not typed. Burned in. Letters dark as blood that dried decades ago. She plays it. Of course she does. There's no resisting the next scene. The script calls for it. Even if there is no script anymore. Just rhythm. Just ritual. The footage rolls. It opens on a town. Stoker Hills. But not the one they know. Older. Wider. Fog curling through the streets like it owns them. Every house is dim. Every window open. A church bell rings, but the tower is broken. The sound has no source. The camera floats. Not handheld, not drone, like it's walking without feet. And now, it enters a building, the police station, but warped. Stretched. Hallways. Too long. Doors where there shouldn't be. Ceilings cracked open to sky that shouldn't exist. Carter is there, alone, sitting on the floor. He looks up, his mouth stitched, but his eyes scream, not for help, for endings. Then the voice begins, not spoken, etched, a whisper that peels from the speakers, like smoke. Every performance must conclude, but only one gets the final bow. A figure steps into frame, the director. No name, no face, only a coat stitched from old film strips. Each one showing the death of someone still alive, reversed, looped, unwritten. Its head is a camera, no lens, just a black hole, absorbing light. Memory, will. The director doesn't walk. It cuts. Each step is a scene shift. Each movement punctuated by the sound of a clapperboard, even though no one holds one. Carter is lifted, not by hands, by intent. He's placed upright, spine too, straight, his eyes glaze, his limbs lock, like a marionette of himself, like an actor told to hold still before the final shot. The director circles him, silently, then leans close. From its chest, a reel begins to unwind. It winds around Carter, tight, slick. Reel becomes ribbon. Ribbon becomes skin. Carter vanishes beneath it. Only his voice remains, a broken whisper, "Cut me out." The footage burns away, replaced by storyboards, crude drawings, charcoal, scratched, of Voss wearing a uniform, holding a weapon. But her face is wrong, too calm, too knowing, and in each panel behind her, the director, watching, growing. Suddenly, Voss is no longer watching the tape. She's inside it, standing in a house she doesn't remember. Film spools, across the ceiling like vines. In the mirror, herself. But not today's self. A younger version. Before the case. before Stoker Hills, before the first tape. She watches her reflection move independently, speak without her, and the words make her cold. You were cast the moment you heard her voice. A knock at the front door. She doesn't open it. She already knows who waits, but the door opens anyway, and there, framed in golden hour light, stands the director. Silent, patient, and behind it, Carter, wrapped in film. His eyes replaced by spindles. His mouth running loops of tape that play her voice. She runs, but every hallway becomes the same scene. Looped. Every exit cuts to black. Every escape reroutes. The world collapses inward, not physically, but narratively. The story can't continue until she plays her role. She wakes, on the precinct floor, a camera pointed at her face. Recording, blinking. She swats it away. It's real, still warm, still filming. Her phone rings, static. Then Erica's voice, breathy, broken. Final bow, detective. You're the only one left in the cast. She hangs up, rises, walks down the hallway. The lights go dark as she passes. At the end, the evidence room. Door open. Inside, the director waits. In one hand, the mask. In the other, the clapperboard. She steps inside, not afraid. Just ready. You've seen enough, the director says. Voice like tape slowed to a crawl. Now show us how it ends. She smiles softly, pulls her badge off, drops it, lifts the camera, and hits record. The door closes. Outside, the monitors blink. One by one, footage rewinds, time loops. But this time, the lens stares into nothing. No actors, no set, only black. Somewhere far away, in a dark theater, a reel ends. The final frame clicks, but no credits roll, only silence. Then, applause. Soft, tired, like it's been clapping for years. Story 4. The road stretched endlessly before her, a black ribbon swallowed by the night. Clara Whitfield gripped the steering wheel tighter as rain spattered the windshield in rhythmic taps. The wipers groaned back and forth, barely keeping up. Her eyes, hollowed by sleepless nights and liquor, flicked to the rearview mirror. Not out of caution, but out of habit. No one was following her. Not anymore. Behind her lay the ashes of everything she'd touched. The office. The screaming. The blood. It played like a broken loop in her head, each rotation louder than the last. She didn't pull the trigger, no. But she might as well have. And in her mind, the gun had her fingerprints all over it. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. A message from her sister, Emily. Just come. I don't care what happened. Just get here safe. Please. Clara stared at it for a long time. Emily had always been the forgiving one. The one who still tried to reach through Clara's iron curtain of self-loathing. But forgiveness felt like a luxury Clara didn't deserve. The rain thickened. Thunder rolled in the distance. Somewhere along the way, Clara had missed a turn. She blinked at the GPS. No signal. The last green sign she remembered seeing had said, "Welcome to Nor Hollow," a name that hadn't rung any bells. The landscape outside had turned rural, lonely. Trees clustered tightly on both sides of the road like sentinels watching her pass. The headlights dimmed suddenly. Her stomach clenched. "Don't do this," she muttered to the car. The engine sputtered once, twice, then died. The car coasted a few more feet before rolling to a stop on the shoulder. Clara sat frozen for a moment, staring into the dark. No traffic, no lights, just the skeletal silhouettes of trees in the mist. She turned the key again. Nothing. Another time. Just a dull click. Perfect. Clara grabbed her coat and stepped, out into the rain. It soaked her within seconds. She opened the hood out of obligation, knowing damn well she wouldn't recognize what she was looking at. Everything smelled like wet metal and failure. A faint light blinked in the distance, just barely visible through the fog. She narrowed her eyes. A porch light? With nowhere else to go, she pulled her coat tighter and walked toward it. The house appeared like a mirage, its sharp silhouette emerging from the rain like a relic forgotten by time. A rusted sign hung crooked from a post by the front gate, looked more like a Victorian hospice than a functioning inn. Weather-worn columns framed a front porch cluttered with wicker chairs and potted plants long since wilted. Wind chimes clattered softly in the breeze, despite the fact there was no wind. Clara climbed the porch steps and hesitated at the door. She raised her hand to knock, but the door creaked open before she touched it. An older woman stood in the doorway, thin, graceful, dressed in faded gray with a brooch pinned to her collar. Her eyes were dark, unreadable, and her smile was warm in a way that felt off, too symmetrical. "Evening, dear," the woman said. "Come out of the rain." Clara blinked. My car broke down. I don't know where I am." "You're exactly where you need to be," the woman replied smoothly. "Please, come in." Something in Clara's bones protested, but she was tired, cold, wet, and she hadn't seen another building for miles. She stepped inside. The foyer of Rosebridge House was suffocatingly quiet. The floorboards creaked under her boots. The wallpaper, once a floral cream, had browned with age. Portraits hung at perfect angles, eyes too sharp, faces too solemn. The scent was a mixture of dried herbs, dust, and something faintly sweet, like spoiled fruit. "I'm Eleanor Gray," the woman said, closing the door gently behind her. "I manage this place. We don't get many visitors in the storm season." Clara brushed hair from her face. "I'm Clara. I just need a place for the night. Do you have a phone I can use?" Eleanor shook her head slowly. "I'm afraid the lines are down tonight, but we can get you settled. Room 3 is clean and quiet. You look like you could use rest more than anything." Clara was too numb to argue. Eleanor handed her a brass key and led her up the staircase. They walked. Clara noticed the light fixtures swaying gently. No breeze, no open windows. Just that eerie movement, like something unseen brushing past them. Room 3 was small but meticulously kept. A 4-poster bed stood beneath a sloped ceiling. The sheets were ironed, the wallpaper peeling only slightly at the corners. A window overlooked the road, though the rain distorted the view into a blur of gray. Eleanor placed a cup of something steaming on the bedside table. "Chamomile with valerian root," she said softly. "Good for nerves. You'll sleep well. Here." Clara stared at the cup, uncertain. "Thank you." The woman's smile never changed. "Don't open the window, and if you hear voices in the hallway, ignore them. The house talks sometimes." Before Clara could ask what that meant, Eleanor had turned and left, closing the door behind her with a gentle click. Midnight crept in on silent feet. Clara lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The tea had gone cold. Her clothes were dry but clung to her skin uncomfortably. The silence in the room was unnatural, not peaceful, but watchful, like holding your breath before something lurches from the shadows. A whisper. She sat upright. It came again, soft and dragging like breath on glass. "Clara." She held her breath. The hallway beyond the door groaned. No. It was just exhaustion. She was drunk off trauma and fatigue. She lay back down. The whisper returned, this time closer, inside the room. You should have stopped him. Her heart clenched. She turned to the window. A shadow moved outside, someone standing just beyond the glass. She jumped to her feet and yanked the curtain aside. Nothing. Rain fell steadily. The empty road shimmered. There was no one. Clara turned back toward the bed and stopped. The teacup was empty. She hadn't drunk a sip. At dawn, Clara sat on the porch of Rosebridge House, smoking a cigarette with trembling fingers. The world was damp, gray, and still. Her car was nowhere in sight. She hadn't heard Eleanor come out, but suddenly the older woman stood beside her. You slept lightly, Eleanor said. Your tea didn't help. No, the woman agreed, smiling. But you're here now. That's something. Clara blinked. Where exactly is here? Eleanor just looked toward the road. A place between places, between choices. You'll see. Clara didn't reply. The cigarette burned to ash between her fingers. Down the hallway behind them, a door slammed on its own. The next morning, Rosebridge House was wrapped in fog. The sky outside looked like smeared milk glass, and the trees lining the front drive had vanished into the mist. Clara stood at the window of room 3, cradling the cup of now-cold tea Eleanor had insisted on delivering again. She hadn't slept. Not really. The whispers. The figure in the window. The sound of doors opening when no one walked past. She needed to leave. She pulled on her coat and descended the stairs, footsteps echoing too loud in the hollow house. She found Eleanor in the dining room, setting a single place at a long oak table that could seat 10. The table was dusty, except where the single setting had been cleaned and arranged with silverware that looked antique. "Morning," Clara muttered. "Can I use your phone now? Or maybe get the number for a tow truck?" Eleanor didn't look up. "The mechanic took your car into town just before sunrise. He'll bring it back when it's ready." Clara frowned. "I didn't even hear him. He comes and goes," Eleanor said calmly. "Some people aren't meant to be seen clearly." That answer made Clara uneasy, but she let it go. "Fine. Is there a town nearby? Somewhere I can get signal?" Eleanor finally looked at her. "There's a main road down past the trees. You could walk it, but I wouldn't recommend it in this fog." Clara crossed her arms. "Why?" "There are things in the fog," Eleanor said, her voice light, as though commenting on the weather. "Things that feed on those who wander." Before Clara could respond, a door creaked somewhere in the house. Footsteps echoed across the upstairs floor, heavy and deliberate. Eleanor smiled faintly. "Ah, one of the other guests is up." Clara hadn't realized there were other guests. The house felt deserted, every room cloaked in hush and stillness. But as she explored, she began to notice little things. A newspaper in the lounge, folded precisely but out of date by over a year. A teacup on the banister. The scent of pipe, smoke in the hallway, though no one smoked. In the corridor leading to the sitting room, Clara passed a door that was slightly ajar. She paused. Inside sat a man in a long, dark coat. His back was to her. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Just sat there facing the wall like a broken statue. Clara backed away slowly. Her footsteps sounded deafening on the floorboards. Later, in the sunroom, she met another guest, a middle-aged woman named Judith, with sad eyes and a tremor in her hands. She was knitting something that looked like a child's sweater, though. Her hands shook too much to finish a row. "I wouldn't try to leave again," Judith said, eyes never lifting from the needles. The fog doesn't take kindly to runners. I'm not a runner, Clara said defensively. Judith chuckled softly. Aren't we all? That's why we're here, dear. What do you mean? Judith looked up, the lines on her face deepening. You'll see. Eleanor brings people who need to see. See what? Whatever we're too scared to look at. Clara didn't respond. Judith went back to knitting, though her yarn was unraveling faster than she could stitch. That night, Clara found herself pacing the hallway. The lights were dimmer than she remembered. She passed room 7 and noticed the door was wide open. Inside, a cradle rocking slowly, though no child could be seen. The mobile above it turned in circles, though no air stirred. She continued down the corridor until she heard whispering again. You left them to die. She froze. The voice was hers, but aged, distorted, almost mechanical. She turned and saw the hallway stretching longer than it should, dim bulbs flickering in the ceiling. At the far end stood the man in the coat, motionless, staring directly at her. No eyes, just black voids where his face should be. Clara bolted. She ran straight into Eleanor at the stairwell. My dear, the woman said gently, you look unwell. I heard... There's a man. Something's wrong with this place. Eleanor tilted her head. The house reacts to what's in you. It doesn't create your fears. It reveals them. What the hell does that mean? It means... Eleanor said calmly, you haven't faced what you came here to forget. Clara's hands shook. I didn't come here for therapy. No, said Eleanor, turning slowly to ascend the stairs. You came here to run, just like all the others. Clara didn't follow. The next morning, Clara woke with a headache pounding like hammers in her skull. Her room was colder, damp. The mirror above the dresser had cracked sometime in the night. She had no memory of dreaming, but the sheets were twisted, and her palms were raw like she'd clawed at something in her sleep. There was a knock at the door. She opened it to find a note pinned with an old-fashioned brass tack. Judith has gone. Sometimes the house lets them leave. Sometimes it doesn't. No signature. Clara rushed downstairs. The sunroom was empty. The sweater Judith had been knitting lay abandoned, still unraveling, threads crawling along the floor like vines. Eleanor was in the kitchen, humming tunelessly while slicing apples. Where did Judith go? Her time was finished, Eleanor said without turning. Yours isn't. I want to leave. I want my car back. You'll leave when the house decides you're ready, she said, placing a perfect red slice on a china plate. Not before, Clara snapped. This isn't a house, it's a trap. Eleanor looked up with eyes as still as lake water. Then why did you walk in without knocking? The room darkened, just slightly. Enough for Clara to notice, enough to make her step back. She tried to leave. She packed her bag, walked down the gravel path past the overgrown hedges, into the trees. The road should have been there. But after walking 15 minutes in one direction, she came to Rosebridge House again, from the back, as if the house had twisted in space. She tried, again, this time following the path behind the greenhouse. 30 minutes, no road, just mist, trees, a crow watching her from a branch, unmoving. Then, Rosebridge again. Eleanor stood on the porch, sipping from a china cup. The fog, she called out, doesn't take kindly to runners. Clara turned and walked, back in silence. That night, she woke to voices in the hallway again. She sat up slowly and listened. It wasn't her name this time. It was someone sobbing, broken, gut-wrenching sobs echoing through the corridor like wind through a cave. She opened the door and stepped out. The hallway was bathed in red light. No visible source, just a saturated glow like blood behind glass. At the far end, the man in the coat stood again. This time, he was closer. She could see a name tag on his lapel. Whitfield, C. Administrative assistant, her own name, her own job title. She slammed the door and locked it. The sobbing grew louder. She screamed into the silence. "I didn't know he was going to do it!" Then silence. Utter and complete. And something inside her whispered, "Didn't you?" Morning came late. Clara didn't leave her room. She sat on the bed, clutching her phone. Still no service. The wallpaper peeled further. A fine layer of dust had settled over her suitcase, as though she'd been here for weeks. She hadn't dreamed, but she felt more tired than ever. Like her soul was unraveling, just like Judith's yarn. She opened the dresser drawer, looking for her bottle of anxiety pills. Instead, she found a newspaper clipping she had never seen before. 10 dead in Horizon Tech office shooting. Gunman fired after HR complaint. Her photo was attached, right next to the gunman's, and a red circle drawn around her eyes. Clara Whitfield sat motionless on the bed in room 3, the newspaper clipping trembling in her hands. Her eyes were bloodshot, her skin pale and damp. The headline burned into her brain like a brand. 10 dead in Horizon Tech office shooting. She hadn't saved them. She hadn't warned them. And now the house, this house, was throwing it back in her face. Outside her window, the fog hadn't lifted. It seemed thicker now, like the world beyond was closing off, pushing her deeper into the rot of Rosebridge. She stumbled to her feet and grabbed the doorknob. The hallway was darker, longer. The red runner carpet stretched endlessly now, as if the house had grown since she last walked it, and something was humming, low, persistent, mechanical. She walked toward the sound. Halfway down the corridor, she found a new door. It hadn't been there before. The number was carved into the wood by hand, messy and slanted. Room 0, her stomach twisted. Every instinct told her to walk away. But her feet didn't listen. She reached out. The doorknob felt warm, almost fevered. She turned it. Inside was a replica of her old office cubicle. Same gray panels, same flickering fluorescent light overhead. A computer screen blinked with the login prompt. C. Whitfield, 042. She stepped inside. The carpet muffled her movements. The screen turned on by itself. Emails began appearing one by one. Old ones. From her boss. From HR. From James, the man, who had later returned with a gun. One email glowed brighter than the rest. James Harper, complaint received. No action necessary. Clara stared at it. She had received that one. Months before the shooting. She had ignored it. Laughed about it. Told Emily over the phone. James is just weird, not dangerous. Her throat closed. Behind her, the sound of typing. She turned. No one was there, but the keyboard was moving. Keys pressing down rapidly, clicking and clacking. The message typed out slowly. Why didn't you say something? Clara backed out of the room and slammed the door. She fled to the main hall. The layout of the house had changed. The staircase now split into 2, leading in opposite directions. Doors lined the walls like a hotel. Faint cries echoed from behind. Several of them, some whispering, others weeping. Eleanor was nowhere to be found. Clara moved aimlessly, passing portraits that had changed. Now they featured her, in her office, in a coffee shop, at home, all moments pulled from memory, but her eyes were scratched out in each one. She found herself drawn to a mirror at the end of a hall. It was old, dust-covered, full length. She stared into it. At first, it showed only her reflection, pale, shaking, hollow. Then, slowly, it changed. Now she saw herself in a break room, watching James sit alone, his head in his hands, his fingers twitching. She had seen this in real life. She remembered. In the mirror, a voice behind her whispered, "You knew he was breaking." Clara whirled around. No one there. She looked back into the mirror. Now James was holding a gun. She ran. Room after room, hallway after hallway. The house folded and unfolded like origami. The walls stretched. The floor sagged in places. Time lost meaning. She entered a dining room she had never seen before. The table was long, and seated around it were 10 mannequins, dressed like her former co-workers, but faceless. At the head of the table sat a mannequin with a name tag, James Harper. Clara approached slowly. A piece of paper lay before each figure. She leaned closer to one and read, "Marcus begged you to talk to HR. You laughed." Another, Renee, cried in the break room, "You walked away." The mannequin at the head of the table raised its arm. Clara screamed and fell backward. The room shook. She crawled toward the door and found it had vanished. Somehow she was back in room 3, or what used to be room 3. Now the wallpaper had peeled away entirely. The bed was rotting. The window was bricked over. Her suitcase was missing. Instead, there was a chair in the center of the room, an old wooden thing, dark and jagged. On it sat a younger version of Clara, mid-20s, confident, phone in hand. Laughing. Clara gasped. The doppelganger looked up. "You always thought you were better than them." "I didn't. You were smarter. Faster. Untouchable." The figure stood, eyes dark and hollow. "Until you weren't. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You didn't mean anything at all. That was the problem." The doppelganger stepped closer. "They died. You lived. But only one of you is still hiding." Clara screamed and threw the chair. The room went dark. When she opened her eyes, she was on the chapel floor. Wooden pews surrounded her. The altar was cracked, black mold blooming across its base. Candles lit themselves in a perfect circle. Eleanor stood at the center, hands folded. "The house has shown you," she said. Clara stood shakily. "I want out. I've seen enough." Eleanor shook her head. "You've seen some, but not all. I didn't kill anyone." "No," said Eleanor. "But you let the rot grow because it didn't touch you. And now it does." Clara's voice broke. "I didn't know what to do. You knew. You chose silence. And silence sometimes is the loudest choice of all." The walls of the chapel pulsed like they were breathing. Clara fell to her knees. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. Eleanor walked forward and crouched beside her. "I want nothing but the house. It wants you to answer for yourself." That night, the house was completely still. Clara wandered, barefoot, into a room made entirely of mirrors. Each mirror showed a different version of her life. If she had spoken up, if she had helped, if she had warned them, each version showed people alive, smiling, thanking her. She fell to the floor, sobbing, and then all mirrors shattered at once. The shards reformed into a door. A small plaque above it read, "Confession. Clara." Whitfield didn't remember falling asleep. One moment, she was staring at the confession door in the mirror room. The next, she awoke in a place that should not exist. She lay in a hospital bed, white sheets, steel railings, a heart monitor softly beeping at her side. But there were no IVs, no wires, no light coming from the ceiling. Only the rhythmic blip and the sound of something dripping. She sat up slowly. Across the room sat Eleanor, gray in a nurse's uniform, old-fashioned, pressed, and utterly silent. Clara blinked. "Where am I?" "You've been here the whole time," Eleanor said softly. "This house is your mind now. Every hallway a memory, every door a consequence." Clara tried to stand, but the room stretched. Walls rippled. The door bent inwards, melting like wax. A crash of thunder split the ceiling above her. The fluorescent lights blinked on and off, flicker, buzz, flicker, until Eleanor was gone. Only her chair remained. Clara stumbled through the house, but it was no longer the same. Rosebridge had become impossible. Rooms looped into each other like a maze. A hallway would stretch out 20 feet and end in the same room she'd just exited. Floors rearranged themselves. Doors pulsed like living tissue. Mirrors distorted her face until she looked like someone else entirely. And worst of all, the other guests were gone. Judith's sunroom was dust-covered, her knitting chair turned on its side. The man in the coat now sat at the base of the stairs, his face entirely blank, a mirror where his features should be. And from within that mirror, Clara saw herself approaching, over and over again. She locked herself in room 3 and counted her breaths. She was shaking, her hair wet with sweat. That night, a thunderstorm tore through the sky. The house trembled with every clap. The lights flickered, and then never came back on. The entire house went dark. She lit a match from the bedside drawer. Its glow danced like a nervous heartbeat on the walls. In the faint light, she saw something scrawled across the ceiling in charcoal black strokes. "You'll never wake up if you don't confess." The match burned her fingers. She dropped it, and, in the pitch black, a cold breath touched her cheek. She tried the chapel again. It was still there, but now the pews were filled, with figures in mourning clothes, their faces veiled. They sat without moving, heads slightly bowed, as if waiting for a sermon that would never come. Clara approached the altar. There was a black box sitting atop it, heavy, ornate. She opened it slowly. Inside, a voice recorder, one of the old tape models from the 90s. It clicked on. Her own voice began to play. "This is Clara Whitfield. This is my confession. I knew James Harper was unstable. I saw the signs. I filed the reports, but I buried them. I wanted peace more than confrontation, and 10 people died because of it. I've never said that out loud before, but this place, it won't let me lie anymore." The recording ended. The lights in the chapel flared like lightning, brief, blinding, and violent. When her vision cleared, all the mourners had turned toward her, and they had no faces. She ran again, this time into the west wing, doors slamming behind her with every step. The house was changing faster now. Paint peeled before her eyes. Mold crawled across the ceilings. Floors groaned, weeping black water from beneath the boards. She slipped into a hallway lit by candlelight. Every painting on the wall was of her, dead, in different poses. One with a knife in her back, one floating in a bathtub, one hanging from the rafters. All with Eleanor standing somewhere in the background. The final portrait was blank, until she stepped closer. Then slowly, Her image appeared, still breathing, eyes wide, staring at the viewer, and behind her in the frame, something huge and crawling with hands instead of limbs. She turned away, but the portrait breathed. In the next room, she found the kitchen. It was pristine again, warm, smelling of rosemary and baked bread. Eleanor stood at the stove. "Would you like to eat?" she asked. Clara approached cautiously. "Why is this happening?" "Because you refused to face it while awake. So now, you'll face it here, where time doesn't move and no one can look away." "I've confessed." Eleanor turned, smiling gently. "No. You recited guilt. But confession, that's when you let it kill the part of you that made the choice." The oven door creaked open behind her. Clara stepped back. Inside wasn't food. It was her old badge from Horizon Tech, still smoking, still hot. Later, Clara found a spiral staircase that wasn't there before. It wound downward into complete blackness. She descended without thinking. Each step flickered images into the air, like old film negatives projected mid-air. Emily crying at her brother's funeral, James pacing in the office lobby, Clara laughing at her desk, headphones on, while the first shots rang out behind the closed door. At the bottom was a single door. Above it, "Wake up." She reached for the handle, and the door whispered back, "Not yet." The next day, Clara awoke in room 3 again, but the walls were now covered in names. She walked through the house slowly. Every surface, every wall, every step, even the ceiling, was written over, names of victims, and one in bold right. Across the main hallway wall, Clara Whitfield. She reached out to touch it. The letters bled under her fingertips, and then the house screamed. Windows shattered, doors slammed, candles exploded into ash. Eleanor's voice roared through every corner. "The house will not let you out until you decide who you truly are." Clara collapsed in the sitting room, surrounded by glass. The man in the coat entered. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a mirror. He held it out to her. Clara stared into it. She didn't see her face. She saw a little girl, herself at age 7, watching her father scream at her mother. Watching, frozen, and choosing silence. The reflection changed to a teenage Clara, watching a friend get bullied, saying nothing, then to adult Clara, turning away from James Harper in the hallway, choosing quiet, choosing distance. Clara sobbed. "I was afraid. I've always been afraid." The man nodded slowly and vanished. That night, the fog outside cleared for the first time, and a door appeared at the end of the central hallway, glowing white, humming softly. Clara approached it. There was no knob. Was just her name etched across it in gold. She pressed her hand to it, and the door opened. The white door opened with no sound. Behind it was nothing. Not darkness. Not light. Just a vast emptiness that seemed to swallow thought itself. Clara Whitfield stood frozen on the threshold, the carved gold letters of her name still glowing behind her. For a moment, she considered turning back, until the floor behind her began to crack. No choice now. She stepped forward. Suddenly, walls formed around her, not stone or wood, but towering panels of glass, suspended in air. She was in a corridor, made of memory. Every pane glowed faintly, each one showing a moving image, flickers of her life, small and enormous, mistakes and mundanities alike. To her right, a glass showed her laughing with co-workers, wine in hand, mocking James Harper for his awkwardness. To her left, she watched herself ignore Marcus's warning email. She remembered that moment exactly. saw herself close the laptop and say out loud, "Not my circus." She turned away, but the corridor extended forward, drawing her in like a current. At the end of the hallway was a door made of black wood, cracked and pulsing like a wounded heart. She touched it. It swung open. Inside was a courtroom, but wrong. The pews curved inward like a spiral. The walls were covered in blindfolds, not curtains, and behind the judge's bench stood Eleanor Gray, no longer in her gray dress, but robed in pitch black, her face expressionless. "You may begin," she said. Clara stepped into the center of the spiral. The walls closed behind her. Suddenly, the seats filled with people, victims of the shooting, or their shadows. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths stitched shut. A jury of the dead. Clara's voice cracked. "I didn't pull the trigger." Eleanor didn't blink. "You ignored the chamber being loaded. I didn't know what he was planning. You knew enough." "I didn't want to make things worse." Eleanor's voice deepened. "So you did nothing, and made it unforgivable." The jury nodded in eerie synchronization. Clara screamed, "I'm sorry!" A booming sound filled the room. Thunder, or the slamming of some unseen gavel. The walls began to bleed, from each name etched into the courtroom spiral. Blood wept. Names Clara knew: Renee, Marcus, Sasha, Greg. The intern who smiled too much. The receptionist with a birthday coming up. All of them. Names she hadn't said out loud since the memorial. She fell to her knees. A small flame appeared in her palm, a candle stub lit from nothing. It didn't burn her. One by one, the stitched mouths of the jury opened. You saw the gun photos on his desk. You laughed. You read the HR report. You said he was just venting. You heard him crying in the bathroom. You turned. Up your music. We begged to be seen. But you looked away. Clara sobbed, but couldn't look away now. The candle in her hand grew brighter, taller. The more she cried, the brighter it burned. Eleanor stepped forward. "This is your reckoning. Clara, you came here for mercy, but the house offers only mirrors. What you do with the truth is yours alone." The courtroom trembled. Cracks spread through the spiral floor like lightning veins. Clara stood, holding the flame. "I didn't come for mercy," she whispered. "I came because I couldn't live with myself, because I needed someone to punish me, to end me." Eleanor tilted her head. "And now?" Clara looked at the jury. "I want to live, but not as I was. I want to carry them with me, not like wounds, but like witnesses." The jury did not smile, but they stood. And then, one by one, they turned to dust, released. The spiral courtroom melted away. Clara stood alone in a quiet, overgrown garden. Stone markers lined the grass. Each bore a name. At the center was a fountain, dry and cracked. Approached the nearest stone. Marcus Taylor, 1983-20-20. He tried. She lit the candle and placed it at the base. One by one, she walked through the garden, lighting a flame for each victim. By the end, the garden glowed. Eleanor appeared beside the fountain. "You understand now," she said softly. "I do. And what about your sister?" Clara's heart clenched. "I'll go to her, if the house lets me." Eleanor raised one hand. Behind Clara, the fog lifted. A road appeared, winding, long, but real. She followed it. The house did not stop her, But just before the tree line, Clara looked back. Rosebridge House stood as it always had, still, silent, watching. Eleanor stood at the top of the stairs, smiling faintly. The door creaked shut. Clara Whitfield walked the dirt road that wound out of Rosebridge's fog and into weak daylight. For the first time in what felt like weeks, the sun touched her face. Not warm, but real. She felt the wind move across her skin. Not the breath of the house, but true air. Trees no longer whispered her name. The road no longer looped. Each step was heavier than the last, because she wasn't sure she deserved to leave. She found a rusted sign half buried in grass. Nor Hollow. 2 miles. The name she'd seen on her GPS before her car failed. Her car, parked in the clearing ahead, hood open, windows intact, keys on the dashboard, as if it had never broken down, but taped to the steering wheel was a single note. Forgiveness is the road. Guilt is the passenger. You choose who drives. No signature. But she could still smell rosemary on the paper. The drive to Emily's house was slow, not because of traffic, but because every familiar landmark looked different. The world had moved on while she was frozen in that house of rot and ghosts. Gas stations had new signs. Shops she once knew had closed. Everything felt sharper, louder, alive. She didn't call Emily. She knocked. The door flew open. Emily stared for one breathless second, then pulled Clara into the tightest hug she had ever known. "I thought you were dead," she whispered, voice cracking. Clara closed her eyes. I think I was." Emily stepped back, hands on her shoulders. "You look pale. You smell like you haven't bathed in weeks." Clara smiled for the first time. "I haven't, but I'm here." They sat on the porch that night with tea. Clara told her everything, not just about the shooting, about her silence, about her guilt, about Rosebridge House and Eleanor and the courtroom made of blood. Emily listened without blinking. When Clara finished, there was a long silence. Finally, Emily said, "You lived. That's what matters. Now what will you do with it?" Clara looked up at the stars, clearer than they had ever been. "I'll try to become the kind of person who would have spoken up." Weeks passed. Clara checked herself into a recovery center. She attended grief groups, spoke with victims' families, sat in silence with the parents of a boy she once passed in the hallway every day and never knew his name. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She bore witness. But sometimes, she still heard the house. In dreams, in reflections. Once, she passed a shop window and saw Eleanor standing behind her, calm and quiet. She blinked, and she was gone. On the anniversary of the shooting, Clara returned to the site. The Horizon Tech office was now a wellness clinic, but the tree outside still bore scars, bullet holes in the bark. She tied 10 white ribbons around it. As she stood there in the fading light, she heard a soft voice behind her. "I see you remembered." She turned. It was Eleanor. Plain gray dress. Calm eyes. Real as breath. Clara didn't flinch. "I thought you were part of the house." "I am," Eleanor said. "But the house lives in you now, for better or worse. I don't want it. You already carry it. But you've changed it. Rosebridge wasn't always meant for redemption. But you cracked its foundation." Clara stepped closer. "So what now?" Eleanor smiled faintly. "You tell your story. You carry the memory. And when the next person like you appears, you help them before they walk into the dark. She vanished. Just like that. That night, Clara dreamed of a hallway, but it wasn't hers. It was someone else's. At the far end, a man cried. Behind a door, someone screamed into a pillow. Clara walked down it, not as a prisoner this time, but as a guide. 2 years later, Clara stood in front of a class of grief support counselors in training. She held up a photo of a white house with chipping paint and a cracked porch swing. "This is Rosebridge," she said. "You won't find it on a map, but it finds people." The students looked confused. Clara smiled. "And it nearly destroyed me. But it also forced me to stop running." She folded the photo away. "We're not here to cure grief. We're here to name it. To walk into the house with someone before it locks behind them." She paused. "In every town there's a Rosebridge. The real question is, will you be the voice that speaks, or the silence that lets it grow?"